What is going on? Justin here from Bonafide Fishing, and you're probably watching this video because either A, you want to learn how to install a bow trolling motor on an SS127, or B, you just purchased our new motorization kit, which includes everything that you'll need to complete the install. So first thing that we're going to do, let's get this thing unwrapped and dive into our kit and identify all of its components. And when I say that we included everything in this kit, you're not going to have to go out and buy any accessories, any other stuff, not unless you want to do some additional customization of your own, but you should be good to go. So real quick, let's just do a deep dive and see what we've got in the box. Now this is the SS127 bow mount, so if you want to see how to install this, I do have a separate video which will be linked in the description, but that's going to be the first thing starting at the bow. And to go along with the bow mount, we are including the Motor Guide quick release bracket. This is going to allow you to mount your XI3. And most of these components will be used on the bow of the kayak. So one thing that you'll have to do is cut the existing cord on the XI3 and replace it with the trolling motor power plug. All right, so this is going up there. And then going into your hatch, you've also got the power receptacle that you'll plug the XI3 into, which is going on the hatch as well. And then next you have really important component. This is your circuit breaker. A lot of people nowadays are installing this on the underside of the SS127 bow hatch lid. And so that's what I'm gonna do today. Just seems like a really good spot for it. To go along with that circuit breaker, you do have a hardware kit. All it is 2 quarter 20 screws, 2 lock nuts, and that's gonna keep it held down in place. Last 2 things I'm gonna throw up here towards the bow. You have your lift line, which is gonna attach to the shaft of the XI3, and it's gonna allow you to lift it up and out of the water. Now, depending on what hand is your dominant hand, I would suggest putting it on that side. So I'm right-handed, I'm gonna put it on the right-hand side, and then you have your internally run line that's gonna run the length of the kayak. It's gonna attach to the pedal of the XI3, and it's gonna disengage that pedal. So once that pedal is disengaged, you can use your lift line and get that motor up and out of the water. And then 2 things that I'm gonna throw here in the stern tank well. You've got a Yak Attack through-hole wiring kit, which is gonna allow you to get that wire through either the access plate or the sidewall of the SS. And then you've got your Connect Ease trolling motor kit. So this is gonna attach to the wire that we just ran and also to your battery. So this is gonna link those 2 components. And then you have some shrink wrap tubing that's gonna go over all of your connection points. And we also included some rod sock material that will go over the wiring on the XI3, make it look all nice and pretty. And then last but not least, we've got our 8-gauge wiring. So I'm just gonna spread this over the kayak and kind of see how much we need. You've got plenty, you will have extra. Don't worry about that. Well, if you've made it this far, I am genuinely impressed. We're going to start by installing the bow mount for the trolling motor. If you would like a more detailed video, there is a link in the description, so click on that, watch that video, and then come back when you are ready. So if you left and came back, welcome. Now we both have our SS127 brackets installed. Now I've got the Motor Guide quick release plate. I've already got it out of its package. You won't need the hardware kit quite yet. I'm gonna put this here. So let's go ahead and get the puck installed. Last couple of items in our hardware kit for the bow mount. You've got 4 screws. Now Motor Guide does include their own, but this is gonna be a whole lot easier, trust me. If you're using a drill, please do not hammer down on this thing. As a matter of fact, I'd rather you use a Phillips head screwdriver. You just saw me put those inserts in, all right? I tapped those in. So if you hammer down, you will strip them out. I ain't gonna lie to you, that was probably the easiest part. Now let's get our motor guide out of its box and get it prepared for the kayak. The hardest part of this install might be just getting this daggum box open. And you're certainly not limited to what motor that you can get. So saltwater, freshwater, non-GPS are all available. I just so happened to pull out a saltwater version. So this is cool. I've only done one install on these before. But if you think you're gonna fish saltwater, even if it's just once, I might recommend go ahead and getting this bad boy. Now I have the other portion of our quick release bracket. My motor guide is flipped, and if we come up here towards the bow, I'm going to show you the correct placement and how this should lay on the plate. Looking at this larger surface area here, this all should be facing towards the paddler. If you come over here, the opposite side is directly in line with the edge of the plate. There's two different sides to this. All right, you have a hard, rough edge, and if you flip it over, it's a beveled, kind of softer edge. That beveled edge is gonna be going down on the plate. So if you flip this over, all right, this surface area here should be mounted to the XI3 itself. And then this larger surface area that I just described right here, this is gonna go all the way down towards the foot pedal. All right, it should not go past this metal plate. It's gonna line up with that metal plate. And then you've got 4 screws. There's several different connection points, but the holes should line up. You'll be able to see exactly where they are. And in order to get access to the internals of this thing, there's only 2 screws, one on each side. All right, so you just have to take one out and that will uninstall this panel here. And you can just kind of sift through your hardware kit that came with the release bracket. I think I misspoke earlier. I said there was 4 screws. There's actually 6, so 3 on each side. So you'll need 6 of the smaller screws and then 6 of the lock nuts and 6 washers. So I'm just gonna drop these in. Remember, you've got 3 on each side, and then you've got a washer and then a lock nut to follow. And I about made a crucial mistake, but before you do anything, you've got a locking mechanism for your pin. So this little doohickey right here, it can either be installed on left side, right side, doesn't matter. But make sure you install this before you put everything back together, or you're gonna have to go back and do everything again. So this piece is gonna go on the middle screw. Again, doesn't matter what side. And it's just gonna slide in right here. And then the hole is gonna align like that. Put your screw through. And before I lock anything down, I'm gonna go ahead and repeat for the opposite side. So take off that panel and then put your 3 screws in. Now that our plate is secure, I can go ahead and reinstall the side panels. Now take your XI3 kit, grab your prop, you'll need that, and then there's a couple of other pieces in here. There should be, yep, kind of like an all-inclusive kit. This is gonna help you get your prop installed. And then we'll set everything else aside for later. All right, I definitely know the pin goes first. So pin, that's what turns your prop, and then prop goes on, and that pin is gonna align on the center cavity right here. It goes on just like that. Money. And I believe that this part is only included on the saltwater version. So if you've got a freshwater version, you may not have this piece. That goes on the outside. Then washer. and then lock nut. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. Don't go hammering down on this thing. Be gentle, okay? Just kind of give it a couple of turns and be done with it. That's why there's a lock washer on this thing. We're about done with our motor. I'm gonna set this here just to kind of get it out of the way. Grab your pin and then lock it down into place. Now we're gonna come up here and this is where the fun begins. I'm gonna get this thing out of the way so we have a nice clean surface area to work on. So this is our next project. So out of the kit that we unboxed, you're gonna grab the trolling motor power plug. And the whole idea here, you're gonna cut off the provided, what do you call these things? The provided, I'm drawing a blank. We're cutting these off. The power plug and the receptacle are both from Motor Guide, and one thing that I love that they did is that they went ahead and put the little connectors on there already, so that's ready to go. Now, let's do the daggum thing and cut the wire. If you cut this thing too long, so what? Who cares? It's gonna work, it'll be fine. The only problem is if you cut it too short. Then we have a whole other thing to deal with. All right. Now it's time to prepare our wire. Got my little fancy wire cutters here. Just gonna take some plastic off, some rubber, I should say. Ah, there we go. That's what I wanted the first time. This is a very crucial step. So if you want to use a rod sock to cover your wires to make them all nice and neat, you have to put this on before connecting your wires. Now this is adjustable, you can cut it to length. And if you do decide to cut it, you'll need a lighter or some sort of torch to kind of melt the ends into place. Okay, I've already cut it. Just lightly, gently apply some heat so it doesn't fray. Not bad, not bad. And then just kind of slide it over the long end. Well, I'll mess up my wires now. And then the last thing that you need to do before connecting your wires, take your shrink tube. You're gonna need about, I'd say 2 inches for each wire. All right, we're just eyeballing that. And then slide it over just like so. Everything looks good so far. Now let's take our red to red. All my electricians, don't come after me in the comment section, okay? Now that both wires are connected, I'm feeling confident that they're installed properly. I'm going to slide the heat shrink tubing over the connectors themselves. And this is marine grade stuff. This is going to seal everything, add some structure to it. All right. I've got my butane torch on a low setting. So low and slow is the name of the game here. If you had a lighter, that is preferable. You definitely don't want to melt the heat shrink or the actual wire itself. So there's actually a glue layer on the inside that is activated by the heat, and it's going to make everything really nice and waterproof. And this next step is not totally necessary, but I'm going to put a piece of electrical tape before and after the connection points, just to keep everything kind of nice and tight. For this next part, I went ahead and unboxed our receptacle. You'll also need a drill. Today, I'm gonna be using a Forstner bit. You could also use a hole saw or even get away with using a spade bit. This is a 1 1/8 inch Forstner bit. I'm gonna aim for right around in here because remember, our circuit breaker also has to be installed on the hatch as well. And then if you look in the hardware kit that's included in the box, you're gonna grab the 2 smallest screws available. So I'm not sure if y'all can see those, but yep, there they are. And then we're just gonna take our receptacle. Yep, that looks good. And then depending on how you installed your power plug, that's gonna determine which direction the receptacle is gonna be facing. So if you look at the teeth here, the teeth are actually facing down towards the kayak. So that means I'm gonna have to install the receptacle just like this. So there's the teeth on the bottom of that power plug, which naturally wants to face down towards the kayak. So that means the receptacle has to be facing this way, just like that. So the next thing that we're going to do is install the circuit breaker. So that's going to require us to flip the lid over and then kind of take a look at how your wires are naturally laying. Okay, that's going to determine how I mount this bad boy to the hatch. All right, so this is going to go right here. I'm going to pull you in just a little closer to show you what I'm talking about. So I need this red wire to mount right here where it says 60A ignition protection. Okay, so if I mount it like this, the wire is kind of getting jumbled up just a little bit. It's scrunching up. I don't like that. So maybe let's turn it around, and the wire is naturally going to lay just right there. So that is perfect. That is money due. And this is actually a perfect place to drill. So if you want to leave your hatch just like this, obviously there's nothing on the underside of it. So it's not going to matter if you drill through. You're going to need a 1/4 inch drill bit. And once I get that first hole drilled, I'm gonna take the hardware kit. So you've got a 1/4 and a lock nut that's in here. And I'm just gonna halfway install one just to keep it steady when I'm drilling. And then this is a 7/16 inch lock nut. So I'm gonna take the wrench on one side and then tighten this bad boy down. And then in order to connect our red wire to the circuit, you're gonna have to cut off this little connection piece here, and then you're gonna reach inside your handy dandy hardware kit, right? It's included in our box. Here it is right here. And you're gonna grab one of these little terminal connectors. Please forgive me, my technical terminology is absolute trash today. And then we gotta strip that wire, just like that. All right, and then this is gonna go over just like so. Okay, and before we do that, let's grab some of our tubing, wherever we put it. Here we go. Slide that guy over. Come over here. Clamp her down. Again, low and slow on that heat. And then before we move on, we can go ahead and connect our red wire. So now I feel like we're at a pretty good point to where we can start running our wire internally. And right now I'm gonna give you a few options that you can do, but I'm gonna show you the easiest way to do it. So the first way that you can do it, you can open up the access hatch in the back. You can shimmy down a tent pole or maybe even a piece of copper wire and attach your cabling to it and then pull it through. Or you can take one end of the wire, you can tie on a hammer or something like that to the end. Shimmy it down the kayak and then lift up the bow, and that hammer will slide all the way down the pontoon hull. But that's way too complicated for me. This is gonna be the easiest way for sure. Okay, so check this out. All right, you're gonna wanna toss your wire to one side, and we're gonna try to get this thing as straight as possible when we're going in. I'm gonna go inside. Okay, I'm going inside of the plate that we installed. This is gonna help me keep it nice and straight. And then as I enter, I'm gonna go all the way down this side of the kayak here, and the weight of the wire is gonna keep it up inside of the pontoon holes to where it can make it down all the way to the stern. And it should come out clean on the other side. And this is real-time stuff, guys. This is first try. Take that access hatch off. Okay, let's see how we did. And just like I said, all the way to the back, baby. So before we start working on the stern, we've got one thing left to do up here at the bow. We've got this lonely black wire here on our receptacle. So we're gonna connect those two. And then also I'm gonna split this down the middle. I'm gonna take the red wire and attach it to the circuit breaker. And now I'm just gonna start prepping these wires. I've already got it split just a little bit. I'm gonna take it down to right about here. That should be good. And then go ahead and strip them down. Just like that. And then we're gonna go back to our little parts kit. You should have one more terminal. And then don't forget your shrink tubing as well. That's gonna go over that. And then grab that terminal. Perfect. And then I'm going to start by cutting our shrink tube to length. Okay, that should work there. And then this should be enough for that. And then you're going to take your longer piece of shrink tube, you're going to slide it over the black wire, and then take that smaller shrink tube, slide it over the red wire. All right, so the terminal is going on the red wire here. Get that on there nice. Clamp her down. Perfect. And then slide over your heat shrink. Again, we're not going crazy with the heat. Make sure it's on that low setting. And then once you see that glue start to activate, you should be good to go. So you can see here that I've already attached our red wire to the circuit breaker where it says waterproof. And now I'm going to connect this black wire here. Hammer that thing down. Oh man, it's my least favorite part. Actually, before we slide this heat shrink, I'm going to give our little connector piece here a little bit of heat. So everything right here is completely done. I do, however, want to do one more thing just to kind of clean things up. I really like how these wires are laying, but I noticed these two are going in the same direction. So I'm just going to throw a little zip tie over both of these and keep everything nice and snug up inside of this kind of recessed area on the hatch. And I just want to emphasize this again, since this has a catamaran style hull, it's got these really nice channels, these pontoons on either side of the kayak. So this cable is going to be nice and snug running all the way down the right hand side of this kayak. So you don't have to worry about it kind of sloshing around in there or getting in the way of any other gear. Now we can move back towards the stern. We're going to finish up our electricals before we move on to our lift lines. So first thing, your access hatch is open right now. I'm going to put the cable back inside the hatch, and I'm just going to rest this on top just like this so I have a good surface area to drill on, because now we're going to install the Yak Attack through-hole wiring kit. So I went and found my 1-inch hole saw, and the goal here is to get directly center of the fin. So if you look at the bottom half of the logo, I'm going directly center of the actual fin. Now, of course, if you're off by just a little bit, it's not going to affect the functionality, but if you're a perfectionist, you know, bust out the ruler, do whatever you got to do. Now that we have our hole drilled, we can take our injection molded pieces from Yak Attack. You've got 2 of them, so you can use one back here, which means you have an extra. So if you have a drop down bucket in the front hatch, you could use it to route your wires from your circuit breaker through the bucket and then back towards the stern. All right, so if you want to get complicated with it, if you want to do a little extra on the side, you are more than welcome to do that. But right now, this is an important step. So take your access plate off, pull your wire back through, get that wire out, put your access plate back on. We can go ahead and install that real quick before we move on to the next step. Before I install this injection molded piece, the kit also includes a variety of sizes, different sizes of these little rubber gasket type things. So we're going to choose the size that we want. It's up to you. I like mine to be a little bit snug. So I'm going to size down a bit. I've already got those picked out here. So just going to slide over just like that. And then same thing over here. And these 2 parts are going to come together to complete the circle, okay? Just like that. So I'm gonna call this a pigtail for right now, and depending on where you put your battery in your tank well will determine how long you need this wire. So I'm gonna create a pretty big slit here, because I imagine I'm either gonna go directly behind the black pack, or I might even go inside the black pack. But I like for it to be pretty long, and then whatever excess cable you do have, you can always push it back into the kayak itself. You don't necessarily have to trim this to length. We gave you plenty of cable to complete this install, so if you want to cut it down, you can, but I'm going to split it a pretty decent ways so I can give myself the ability to put the battery wherever I want, and that looks pretty good to me right there. And then these little rubber pieces should fit kind of in that little 1-inch hole to create a nice little seal there. And then in your Yak Attack kit, you do have a couple of screws. You're going to have to drill the holes out, of course. So just slide, make sure that Yak Attack is reading right. Slide that over just like that. And then we can go ahead and drill out our holes. These are some pretty small screws. I'm gonna see if I can get away with using a 7/64 inch drill bit, which I think I can. So line this bad boy up where you want it. Go ahead and drill them holes. I feel like a parrot at this point, but don't hammer down on that thing. I would much rather you use a Phillips head screwdriver. just to make sure you don't strip everything out. I mean, that's a pretty tight fit, and that's going to hold right there. That's money. But if you sit there and hammer on it, it's just going to take all that plastic out. And yes, I was correct. This is a 7/64 inch drill bit. Thank you, Yak Attack. Just wanted to confirm before I tell the masses. And see, this is what I mean when I say I've got an adjustable pigtail. So again, depending on where that battery is sitting, you can sit here, you can feed some extra cord back into the boat. You can shorten that thing up, all right? Or you can make it longer if you want to. So I like having that extra cable. Whew, this is the last step in the electrical phase of this install. Hallelujah. So now we have to bridge, so to speak, the wire to the battery, and that's why we have these connectees trolling motor kits. So one end is going to connect to your wire, and then the other part is going to install on your battery. So I ran and got my battery. I'm going to attach this piece really quick before I install the other piece, and this is a really easy thing to do. Just kind of screw this in here just like this. Now I'm going to take the remaining shrink tube, I'm going to prep these wires and get this last part installed. Hammer that thing down. There we go. And then let's throw down a little bit of heat on the end of these tubes. They should shrink up a little bit, giving it a nice tight fit. And then after you've let that cool down just a little bit, you can slide your heat shrink tube over the top. And then rinse and repeat. Before we go any further, this is the moment of truth. I just plugged up a fresh battery. Now let's go see if it turns on. Come on, baby. Give it to me. Let's go! All right, we did something right, y'all. Heck yeah, all right. Everything works. We can continue with our install. Whew, finally, we are done with all the electrical work. You are now a certified electrician, not residential, only marine, specifically kayaks. But now we're gonna install the lift lines for our motor. We've got 2 kits left, so grab the one with the Yak Attack GT Cleat XL inside, and then you've got a piece of rope and you've got a pull knob. So I'm going to install this on the right hand side. Honestly, it doesn't matter, depending on your dominant hand or which hand you want to pull the motor up with, this is where you're going to put it. So I'm going with the right side, and then the first thing I'm going to do is come up here to the shaft of the XI3 and tie on my rope. Now this step is pretty important, and the knot that I'm about to tie is very specific to this motor. The key here is you don't want this rope to continuously wrap around the shaft. If you were to hit spot lock and your kayak is trying to hold position, this motor is going to spin continuously trying to keep you in place. So we want this rope to be able to freely spin around the shaft. So this is the knot that I'm going to tie. So I'm just going to fold her down, and then you're going to create a simple loop as small as you can. So that's pretty good right there. Tighten that down, and now you've created a loop. And then you just take the other end, feed it through just like that. And now we're good to go, and this shaft is going to spin freely without affecting the position of your lift line. And then if you're familiar with our rudder kit, these are the same knobs that are included on the lift and lower line. All right, so same thing here. I'm just going to slide that piece of rope through. And this should be thick enough to where you don't have to double knot it. But if you want to be safe, you're more than welcome to do so. Just tie a little simple knot there. Pull it tight, make sure it's not coming out. Money. And then after that, you grab your GT cleat from Yak Attack. And this installs pretty effortlessly, just because it's going to go right here on this track. So the idea here is to keep this line taut. That's why we included the Yak Attack GT cleat. You know, one big thing for me, I cannot stand a cluttered deck. So if you've got this random piece of rope just hanging around, it's liable to get caught on something, this and that. But let me show you why it's important functionality-wise to keep this rope tight. So I've got the line tight, everything is plugged up. I'm gonna take it 360 degrees. Now keep your eye on the knot that we just tied. It's gonna continuously slip and allow the motor head to move freely. Not bad at all. So the last part of our lift line install is going to be an internally run Spectre cable that's going to go on the opposite side of the boat. This is going to be the release mechanism for the foot pedal up front, which holds the shaft of the XI3 in place. The first thing that we have to do is drill a couple of holes. Now we're going to start pulling from our last kit, and you have a couple of parts in here, one being this little pass-through that's going to go up front, and this is going to be held down by 2 blunt screws. So they're the only blunt screws in the kit, so grab those out. And then you'll also need a 7/64 inch drill bit to drill those holes. So I'm going to get this as dead center as I can in between the latches and the beginning of the paddle park. That looks pretty good. And once you've got those about halfway seated, switch over to a Phillips head screwdriver so you don't strip out the holes that we just drilled. And now I'm going to switch over to a 1/8 drill bit and drill straight center of the part. So coming back up here just below the seat, I'm going to grab my little pulley piece out of my kit and then my last remaining 2 screws. Now these are self-tappers, so no need to really drill holes on this one, but again, you do have to be careful not to strip them out. So go slow, use a screwdriver. You can get them started with the drill, but then tighten everything down using the Phillips head. So I went ahead and got these screws started. You'll notice that this top half, this portion right here, is flat. And then the lower half is rounded. That's going to be facing towards the bottom. And once you get those screws started, you can come in here with your screwdriver and finish everything off. And then directly above the bottom screw, there is a tiny little hole. This is going to be the pass-through for the Spectre cable. So I'm going to grab, again, the 1/8 inch drill bit and just drill out that hole. And now that we've got our hole drilled, we can start feeding our Spectre cabling up towards the front. And this stuff retains its structure pretty well, so as long as you're straightening it out as you're feeding it in, it should make it up there no problem. And before we move on to anything else, take the rest of your kit. You've got a T-handle in there, grab that. And we're going to thread our Spectre cabling up to the top of this pulley system here. So once you've got that done, you can take your Spectre cabling, thread it through the T-handle, and then you can tie a double knot if you want to for added security. Just like that. And then for this next part, you have two things left in your kit. You have a small carabiner, which we'll place up front, and then you have about 14 inches of bungee. Now this is gonna take a little bit of finesse to get the tension right, but I'm gonna show you the easiest way to do this. You're gonna start off by pulling your Spectre cabling tight. Remember, we just tied that T-handle up front, so it's not gonna go through the hole. You're gonna pull it tight, and you're gonna pull it all the way up to the edge of this corner here. Now mark that position. This is going to be the first position in which your bungee is going to be placed. First, tie a simple knot on one end of your bungee. Get it as close as you can to the very end, cinch it down tight. Now, take that exact position on that Spectre cabling that we just found, and you're going to tie another knot around this knot. Here, I'll bring you in close. I'll try to bring it out just a little bit closer so you guys can see it. All right, so I'm tying a knot around this bungee. Cinch it down tight, just like that. For all you folks at home that weren't paying attention, I'm gonna do it one more time. So bring it up to this corner, find that position. Take your knot, and then you're going to tie a little knot around that knot. Just like that. Now I've got one side tightened down. I'm going to go to the opposite end of the bungee and I'm going to tie another knot. My knot is tied. I'm going to extend both the bungee and the Spectre cabling all the way out. All right, they're fully straight. Now, take the Spectre cable and you're gonna start giving it some slack. You're creating a small triangle just like this, and that's gonna be enough right there. So you're giving it some slack. This is gonna create tension that's gonna keep our internal line tight. And now that you've built up some slack in that gray Spectre cord, again, you're gonna tie it around the end of the other knot on the bungee. All right, take a look at what we just did. We created some tension using the bungee by putting a little bit of slack in that Spectre cord. And that right there is perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. Now I'm going to take the other end of our Spectre cabling and feed it through the hole that we drilled previously. Once you've got that pulled through, you're going to tie a simple loop knot. So just double it over on itself, take it around, make that loop. And then now that we have our little loop created, you can take your carabiner, thread it through just like that, and we are ready to finish this thing up. And for this last and final step, for those of you with weak stomachs or are easily triggered, I suggest clicking off of this video because we're about to drill into the XI3. Just kidding, it's not that bad. I promise. I'm gonna put a small hole in the foot pedal. I'm gonna use a 1/8 inch drill bit as a pilot hole, and then I'm gonna come in at the very end with a 1/4. So I went ahead and drilled my pilot hole with the 1/8 inch drill bit. Now I've got the 1/4. Now be careful, don't put a whole lot of pressure on this. You don't have a whole lot of room back here. So I'm just gonna go low and slow, baby. Well, I said go low and slow, Justin. All good, that's perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. It's time to finish this thing. I'm gonna take the carabiner, connect it to the foot pedal through the hole that we just drilled. The tension looks nice. I love how everything is looking right now. This was a really good install, probably my best to date. So let's check the action on this real quick. So you're gonna slightly pull back, all right, releasing that tension on the shaft, and then all you have to do, release the pedal and pull up just like that. Take your foot pedal release mechanism, pull it up, and we're money. So that was the complete install of the XI3 on this SS127. If you are interested in the motorization package, you can find the link in the description below. Appreciate y'all for watching. Good luck on your install, and I will see you on the water.